Hey y'all, glad to see everybody back here tonight. Welcome to another DCO Live. Steve, SJ, Russell, guys, really appreciate y'all jumping on. Before we get started tonight, I really do appreciate you guys jumping in here every week. It really kind of breaks up my week, coming home and after work and then being able to sit down and talk some fishing with you guys. I always look forward to Thursdays. So I really do appreciate that. And secondly, again, boy, thoughts and prayers still going out to everybody affected by the last couple of hurricanes that's come through. Everybody in Upper South Carolina and the Asheville area of North Carolina is still just devastated. And now with Hurricane Milton pulling through last night and early this morning. And, Florida is just absolutely getting devastated right now. So, again, thoughts and prayers are with them. And if you guys are able to help out in any way with food donations or any type of monetary donations, you know, look at doing something like that. I have been hearing of a ton of scams, which is just absolutely awful. So just make sure you guys are going through reputable, businesses and companies when you guys donate. I know around the beach there are plenty of areas to drop off food and any type of donations. With us being outdoorsmen, Captain Jason Burton with Merle's Inlet Fishing Charters has been taking, all kinds of donations and running food up. And Neil's Creekside, which is right there in Merle's Inlet, and Neil and Pam's, they're taking donations. And I'm sure there's Beach Church is also taking donations to run up for the people of North Carolina and South Carolina, and probably even down to Florida now. So, guys, again, thoughts and prayers are with them. But let's get in and let's talk a little bit of fishing here today. I've got some questions up, but it looks like SJ Workman, you've already thrown up a question up there, buddy. So it says, "Hey everyone, Chris, do you ever cast net any shrimp while you are out, or have you any advice on it?" Yeah, actually, I haven't done it in a while, but yeah, I throw a cast net for live bait every once in a while. I've got a little 4 foot cast net that I throw. I'm not the best at it. I target really a lot of mullet because I'll stand on like a little sandbar and wait for mullet to swim by, and then I'll, do my best to try to cast net what I can. And a lot of times, yeah, I'll get shrimp in those cast nets. I have actually went shrimping one time. It's been years ago, where you actually put out the poles, you drop some bait balls, and then you go out and you throw your cast net and you try to fill a 48 quart cooler and try to get some shrimp that way. I've done that one time. Did all right with it. I think we got like about a half a cooler, something like that, and it was a good time. There was some drinking going on, and it was a fun day. But yeah, so if you're doing it for bait, yeah, I usually do it for mullet or any type of schooling bait that is running down the shorelines. I'll throw a cast net. I am not the best at it because I don't do it that often, but it's not that difficult to throw the cast net. There are a ton of YouTube videos out there to help you learn how to throw a cast net if you've never done it. But yeah, absolutely. It is a great way to get yourself some free bait, get yourself a cast net and a little minnow bucket, and go out there and do it. Absolutely. So hopefully that's what you are kind of asking. But yeah, I've done it. I haven't done it in a while, but sure, absolutely. It's a great way to especially get some finger mullet that these fish are really keyed in on. So yeah, if you're a live bait fisherman, you know all about throwing a cast net. So yep, absolutely, I have done it. So let's jump into a couple of questions from some subscribers. There was one comment that I got a kick out of. I think it came in last week, but it said, Mullet Procure on a shrimp lure? That blew my mind. Well, here is my kind of take on Procure and scents on artificial lures. Really, that scent is one, I use it to mask the kind of the plastic scent of the lure, mask any smells that I may put on that lure, try to get a little bit of like a fish smell or a shrimp smell. And then also when that fish comes up and hits that lure, it may get that little bit of a taste or, a little flavor of shrimp or mullet or blue crab, and just hang on to it long enough for you guys to set the hook. That's the way that I use scents. And thirdly, fish will be attracted by scent, and Procure does kind of break off and will float around in the water and have a little scent trail. So yeah, they can get attracted in by that. How much it actually works, don't know. I would be interested to see if there's any research out there on, Procure or any type of scent being sprayed onto artificial lures and see how much it does work. But fish, the nose and scents, they will feed right up to it until they can see it. So yeah, absolutely. Procure I use all the time. I don't think it really matters putting mullet on a shrimp lure or putting shrimp Procure on a paddle tail. I don't think it really matters. I've done it both ways. 8 ways to Sunday, I put blue crab on a shrimp and caught fish. I think it's just the scent and maybe a little bit of a flavor to let that fish hold on to it maybe a little bit longer instead of spitting that thing back out. So, yeah, so I thought it was a great little question. And um, Steve said that he uses Procure squid flavor. Is that right? So yeah, I think there's all kinds of shrimp flavors out there. I mean, you can just jump on their website. They've got all kinds of stuff from freshwater and saltwater Procure. So yeah, I love the mullet and the shrimp, and I've used blue crab before. Those are the three that I usually gravitate towards. And you guys have seen me enough. You guys know I'm a big believer in Procure, and whether it works or not, I don't know. It's a confidence thing for me, and that's why I put it on. So I have confidence in it, so I do it. Second thing that I got a question on was jig head weights and when to throw them. A guy was a little bit confused when I would go to like a quarter ounce or a 3/16 or an eighth of an ounce jig head. And I wanted to just touch on that really quickly and kind of give you my rule of thumb. These are not hardline rules, it's fishing. So take this kind of at face value. Use what works for you. If you have a certain jig head that you love and you're married to and you have confidence in, throw that. But this is kind of how I judge when to use these certain weights. So if I'm in 1 to 3 feet of water, I will use an eighth of an ounce jig head. That will get me onto the bottom at a fairly quick rate, a pretty good little fall, get me down onto the bottom. Now, with that being said, in that 1 to 3 foot of water, I will also use a 1/16 of an ounce, which will be a little bit slower fall, and will, if I want to work kind of the upper end of that shallow water column for especially like some redfish, then I'll use a 1/16 of an ounce, or I will use an unweighted hook, like a EWG unweighted rigged weedless, and work it right on the top of the water in that 1 to 3 feet, especially up on the grass flats. When I'm kind of running it through some grass, I just kind of want to look like those bait fish that are working right along that grass line. So that's when I use that 1/8 of an ounce. And then kind of that 3 to 5 feet depth of water, I'll move into the 3/16 ounce, and I'll either use an open hook or the like the Texas Eye and rig it weedless. So it really doesn't make any difference to me. If I'm throwing around a lot of structure, then I will go weedless, just because I don't want to get snagged or try not to get snagged on it. So, and then from about 5 feet to maybe 8 feet, something like that, is going to be my quarter ounce. And so those deeper depths, I want that quarter ounce to get to the bottom pretty quickly. Now you can use an eighth. It will go down 8 feet, but it's going to take a while. It's going to be a slow fall, getting that eighth of an ounce all the way down that water column to maybe where the flounder are or maybe some deep water redfish. So just keep in mind that when you cast that out and you want an eighth of an ounce to go down 5, 6, 7 feet, that you have to be patient, let that thing go down there and not work it at all until you know it's on the bottom. So that's kind of that rule of thumb. And that slower fall rate works great, especially like trout fishing. I was out fishing, what was it, last weekend, and I was in a small little tournament, and I got on a nice little trout bite on a current rip off of a dock. I was in about 10 feet of water, and I was using the 3/16 ounce Prawn Star from Z-Man. Now, I threw that up underneath the dock and I let that shrimp lure kind of just sink and go with the current. And when it got down, I'm going to say maybe about 4 or 5 feet, that's when I was picking up those trout. So that slower fall rate down into that water column, just kind of working it down, the trout were hitting it. And I actually left trout biting. I probably caught, I'm going to say like 10 trout. And that was in the span of maybe about a half hour. I mean, they were stacked up on this dock. The biggest trout that I caught was 13 1/4 inches. The rest were all 12-inch trout. Well, with it being a tournament, I needed a redfish and a trout. So I thought that I pretty much caught the biggest trout in that little school, so I ended up leaving. But sometimes, to get back to my point, sometimes you want that slower fall rate to maybe pick up some trout as it's dropping through that water column. So yeah, that's kind of how I work my weights and when I throw them. Um, Barabi, great to see you in here, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name right. I apologize if I'm butchering that. But he says, I was thinking of buying my first bait caster. Any suggestions? Found a Daiwa Tatula, and think it was around 100 HL, and a Tactical Elite bass rod around 200. Any combo suggestions? I don't throw a lot of bait casters. I don't know a whole lot about them. So I am probably not the guy to ask about that. I apologize. I do know that the Tatula is a great reel. Um, Again, I don't know that much about them. I have one. It's an old Lew's bait caster, but again, I just don't throw them. So I'm sorry, I can't really suggest anything to you. I wish I could, but maybe somebody on the chat here can throw something out here for you. But I definitely don't want to steer you in the wrong direction. But I do know guys who throw the Daiwa and love it. So I know that the Tatula, Daiwa makes a great product. I've got the Legalis spinning reel, which is a great product. So I don't think you can go wrong with that. I really don't. But again, maybe if somebody else can help you out, but I apologize. I just don't know that much about bait casters. I just don't throw them. I'm a spinning gear guy. So sorry about that. Um, Steve said, poured a couple dozen football jigs today. Fantastic. I love those football jigs, especially on like a hard sandy bottom and just kind of dragging them right on the bottom. Is that how you use them, Steve? Do you just kind of use them to just, once you get down there, you just kind of drag them onto the bottom? I'd be interested to know how you're using your football jig. So I've got a few, and it's almost like a thin wire football jig that I use for some smaller, like finesse style shrimps, slim swim, stuff like that, especially in late winter for a little smaller, slower presentation. That's when I usually use them. So the one of the questions, the last question that I have here, excuse me, is yes. So in one of the last videos that I had, one of my fish was swallowed the hook in my lure, and the guy wanted to know, what do you do when a fish swallows the hook and it's too small to keep? So I get this question actually quite a bit. I don't like to play surgeon and try to dig these hooks out. I think it's better served, and this is my opinion, and I could be totally wrong. I cut the line and hope for the best. I know that if I get in there and I start digging around with some pliers and he starts bleeding and then I release him, I know he's not going to make it, and I just do more damage trying to get it out. Maybe if I just cut the line and release him, he may survive. Again, I don't know. It's just an unfortunate thing. Us as fishermen, it happens. It's going to happen. You fish long enough, and these fish are going to just sometimes just engulf the lure. And I've had them where I don't even see the jig head. They've actually just swallowed the whole thing, and you can't. You just got to cut the line. But it's one of those things. I heard a guy say the other day that if the fish dies, it's kind of the circle of life. Crabs got to eat. There are other bottom feeders that's got to eat. It's just unfortunate. Um, Steve just again commented, pinch down the barbs, it makes it easier. Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're taking them out, pinch down your barbs. That's that's great advice. Absolutely, pinch down those barbs. He says he rarely loses a fish because of it. So, yeah, great tip from Steve. Guys, pinch down those barbs. So, if you got to go in and maybe play surgeon, you can kind of get those out a little bit easier. But if I know that I'm going to do damage to these fish, I'll just cut the line and let him go. So that's what I do, and I know that was a question that this gentleman had, and I wanted to address it. So one of the things that I also wanted to look at was shorebirds, and looking at these, especially the large white egrets. I think they're called great egrets that are on the shorelines. Every once in a while, I'll get a question about, hey, what are you looking at when you're looking at the birds? Because I hear you say, hey, I see birds on the shore. I'm going to go look over there. I'm going to do, things like that. So one of the things that I'm looking for, one is this bird right here. I know you guys know what a white egret is, so I am going to share my screen as soon as he pops up. So yeah, so that's a great white egret. You guys have seen these egrets down here right along the shoreline. So these birds are feeding on, shrimp and small little bait fish. And when they're standing on the shoreline and they're being perfectly still, they're hunting those bait fish. One of the things that I really look for is if I see multiple birds and if they're hopping along a shoreline, they'll stop and one will kind of hop. They'll stand there and they'll kind of hop and move down a shoreline. That tells me they are following a pod of bait fish that are being, I'm going to say, moved around by either redfish or trout that are pushing these bait fish kind of up against the shoreline. And these birds will work in conjunction with redfish to feed, especially when they're hopping down the shoreline. They're following these schools of redfish. And a lot of times when I'm seeing that, you can go down that way. Now, don't go buzzing down there and start throwing it because you'll spook everything off. Take your time, move up nice and easy, be quiet with it, make some long casts, and try to pick off some redfish, and you will. Matter of fact, that tournament that I ended up winning down in Charleston, the last 18-inch red that I picked up, I mentioned in there that there's birds along that shoreline, and there were four of them. I don't think you can quite see them on the camera. If you zoom in, you'll maybe be able to see the little white dots, but they're there. And so I just kind of made my way up there, and then that's when I picked up that 18-inch red. And then right along on the backside of the point where those birds were is where I picked up those two or three 12-inch redfish towards the end of the day. So look for these shorebirds. They are, especially if they're hopping on the shore down the shoreline, they are working with redfish and feeding on those bait fish. So hopefully that's something that you guys can take away tonight. The next time you're out, look for those birds. You know, they will tell you if there's fish in the area. So definitely look for them, especially those great white egrets. It's a great tell. So let's talk this weekend. This weekend, I am not going to be fishing. I am actually heading up to Fayetteville. I'm going to be spending some time with family. My son is up at Fort Liberty, and so we rented an Airbnb up there, and we got a bunch of family coming up, and it's going to be great. I'm going to be playing golf for a couple of days and see if I can't get my golf game back into shape a little bit. It's been a little while, so you know it's going to be fun. We're going to play some cornhole and just kind of hang out, maybe play cards and do that. But I will not be out on the water this weekend. And from what I see, it is supposed to be a beautiful weekend. I mean, hardly any wind. Um, Low 70s. It's going to be perfect. So get out there, do some fishing this weekend. Let me know how you guys do. Because when I get back into town on, what's that going to be? The 14th, Monday the 14th. That next weekend, I have a redfish tournament that I'm going to be in fishing out at, we launched from Garris Landing just north of Charleston. So I'll be down there, and that'll be the next time that I get to fish. So I'm looking forward to that. It's actually the championship redfish series tournament. It's the last one of the year for the low country kayak anglers. And I want to say there's only like 10 of us in this tournament. There was certain criteria you needed to meet to get into the championship. And so I was fortunate enough to be invited and get into that tournament. So I'm going to go down there and do some fishing and just really enjoy the day. So I'm really looking forward to that. I've already been kind of scouting a little bit, like using Google Maps and checking, the future cast and seeing what the weather is going to be like, being almost 10, 12 days out. So right now it looks like it's going to be maybe an hour or two before high tide, and then we'll fish the rest of the day with the outgoing tide. So my plan is to possibly work along some grass lines at high tide. may even throw like a popping cork right along some flooded grass using a shrimp or a small little paddle tail. And then as the tide starts to drop out, maybe push into some of these creeks and see if I can't find some schooling fish back into some of these creeks, and throw some shrimp patterns and some paddle tails. So that's kind of what my game plan is going to be. Right now, the weather looks pretty good. 5 to 10 mile an hour winds, no rain. But then again, that can all change. It's, what is it, 12 days away, something like that. No, I don't think it's that long. 10 days? Yeah, I don't know, whatever. But that's kind of what I do. I jump on Google Earth, and I pull up and I start looking at the creeks. I see where we launch from, and then I start looking for oyster bars and any type of structure that I want to go to, any Ys, going into main channels to look back up into creeks. So I use Google Earth and Google Maps quite a bit, and I'm sure you guys do too. When you guys are looking to scout and pre-fish areas, that you can't go to, there's a lot of times when I'm going down to Charleston, I've never been to an area, I'll have a plan A, B, and C off of Google Earth going, okay, I want to hit this little spot, and then this one looks good, and then this one looks good. Well, they could all be strikeouts, and then you're just kind of up in the air, or you could strike it rich and get on a nice little school of fish, which I'm kind of hoping to do, on the 19th. But it's going to be fun. I get into these tournaments to really kind of challenge myself to see how good I can do. I'm still learning a lot of the tournament fishing. I love it. It all comes down to how well you can adapt that day and try to catch fish. I go out when I make my videos. A lot of these videos are 2 or 3 weeks old, and they kind of stack up. And I catch fish. Maybe one day, get skunked out 3 days, catch fish one day. That's fishing, man. I'm not the best fisherman in the world. I'm just a weekend warrior that gets out and just loves it. So, I just go out and I just try to challenge myself. SJ, what are your thoughts on the new cash and rod? Yeah, like it. I like it a lot. So right here is the new cash in. If I don't knock it onto the ceiling, so it's right here. Yeah, I love it. And I tell you, the one thing that I really like about that Icon series is the weight of this rod. It is just feather light. There's a lot of times, I will have, I call it rod fatigue at the end of the day, making cast after cast after cast, and you may not think, oh, well, it's only a 8 or 10 ounce rod, it doesn't even weigh that much. Well, when you go to something 8 ounces, something down to 3 or 5, it makes total difference. And I tell you, I've been pretty impressed with it. The sensitivity, I've caught, I think I've caught an 18 and a 17-inch flounder on it. It's just really worked out well. The cash and rod is what I caught the trout on because I had the little prawn star on it, and feeling those things tap that, because a lot of times those trout were short striking it and then they would take and hit it, and I was feeling all of that. And so the sensitivity of those carbon fiber rods are fantastic. I think it's great. So, the next rod I want to get is the new, well, I call it new. It's the TFO, I think it's called the Bite series. I could be wrong. I'm going to double check that. But I think that's going to be the next rod I get, and kind of match it up and do a comparison with the Icon series from the Cash and Rod and see which one I like. I have been asked the question, now that I'm kind of talking rods, is if you were going to spend money on rods and reels, what would you spend the most money on? And it's definitely the rod. If you're going to spend, I'm just going to throw out a number, let's just say $200. If you have that for your budget to buy a rod and a reel, I would spend 150 on the rod and 50 on the reel. The rod is everything. The rod casts your line, it's the sensitivity, and it helps you set the hook and keep that hook in place with the bend of the rod. The rod does everything. The reel, especially on spinning gear, it takes up and picks up line and it sets your drag. And that's pretty much it. So if I'm looking at spending money, I will spend the majority of my money on a nice rod and just kind of pick up a reel. Now, I'm not saying a reel isn't that important. I'm just saying, to me, 75% and 25% would be my breakdown as far as, a budget for a rod and reel. So, but yeah, I do like the rod. I love it. I would probably get another one. Go and try them out. They have the Icon series, I think, is their high level rod, but they have an Elite series, which I think is like, oh gosh, don't quote me on this, maybe $100 to $125 for the rod. And I picked that one up too at when I was up at Cashin, and that was a fantastic rod. It's got a cork handle on it, and it felt really good. So, I mean, I just went with the Icon series because I wanted to see what, kind of their top end rod, their top end inshore rod felt like. So I went ahead and I spent a little bit more money and I went with that one. And just to kind of let you guys know, that rod was right around 240, to kind of give you a little bit of a comparison. So they also do have a CK line, which is a kayak series line. And so you guys can go check that out. Go out on, Cashin, I think it's cashinrods.com. Go check out their website. And yeah, go pick up a rod. I'm not sponsored by them at all or affiliated with them. I just had the opportunity to go up with Captain Bob. He invited me up, and I got to look at their operation, which was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So yeah, that I like it. Definitely check them out. Definitely check them out. So guys, it's 8:30. So if y'all have any more questions, throw them up in the chat box real quick. I'll give it another minute or two. Other than that, guys, again, I appreciate you. Get out there and go fishing this weekend. It's going to be absolutely beautiful. I will definitely be thinking about it, especially when there's no wind out there like all weekend. This was like the weekend to be out on the water. So hopefully the weathermen get it right this weekend. Shoot me a message. Let me know how you guys do this weekend. Leave me a comment. I will be uploading another video Saturday morning, so I'd appreciate it if you'd all check that out. Leave me a comment and share it with your fishing buddies. Pass it along. Just why I'm thinking about it here real quick, I'm at about 1,922 subscribers. My goal for the year, I wanted to reach 2,300 subscribers. I've got a little bit of time left. I don't think I'll make it, but hopefully, I can get a few more subscribers. I'd love to hit my goal of 2,300, but if not, that's quite all right. You always got to set goals and try to push yourself. But Steve just threw out found flounder heaven in Merle's Inlet Monday. It was crazy. Oh man. Yeah, I tell you, hey, flounder stack up just like any other fish. I mean, you talk about schools of red. I've been like Steve. I've been on like a school of flounder where I've caught like 6 or 8 flounder and they're just like stacked up in an area. Yeah, absolutely. So that's a kind of a tip right there is when you catch a fish, don't be too quick to leave that area. Give it 10-15 minutes. If those fish are there and they're feeding, keep throwing back in there, man. You may find flounder heaven. So yeah, man, absolutely. That is awesome. That's awesome. Cletus, good to see you. It looks like you jumped in here kind of late, but yeah, man, good to see you, buddy. Appreciate you. And guys, if there's no more questions, I will see you next week right here, 8 o'clock for another DCO Live. Guys, I appreciate you and see you next time.